welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast. Before we get started with some real foolishness, you know what to do. Go ahead, click that subscribe, that like, and that notification bell. So you can be notified when new episodes come out, and basically you can join the Format Podcast team, and you can be right here with us for every episode. If you want the audio only version of the podcast, right there on the screen for you viewing on YouTube, and for your audio podcast listeners, just type in the Format Podcast wherever you get your audio podcast. We should come up. If you can, please leave us a comment or leave us a comment so that we can rise in the algorithm, help more sports fans find us, and help us find more sports fans. Also, please give us that 5-star review. It also helps us rise in the algorithm and helps us further get out here. All right, thanks. Let's get to it. So I mentioned at the very top, we're going to talk about some nonsense. And yes, I believe it is nonsense. We got No Chill Gilbert Arenas back at it. On a recent interview with DJ Vlad, discussing Steph Curry and his place all time as a basketball player, I was thoroughly astounded by some comments that he made. Now, I guess at this point I shouldn't be astounded anymore, because we know that in a lot of cases guys are just saying things to get attention. But you know what, just check it out and we'll come back and talk about it.
Without even just diving into my list, I'm gonna just go and say he's gonna be top 10. Somehow I'm gonna put him in the top 10, knowing what I know, knowing his work ethic, knowing his height, knowing what he does, the excitement, being a guard, being a guard in Golden State where I was too. Like, I'm gonna put him in the top 10, just off of rip. Like, you know, it's like one of those things. I'm gonna put him, and then I'll try to figure it out from there. You know, but we're trying to compare his style to a style that is dinosaurish. You know what I mean? So when someone was like, well, how are you going to leave out like Larry Bird? Easy. Like, I can do that easy. I can look at his stats and then go there, not realizing, well, the game is so much faster. Meaning when they were scoring 86, 96, these guys are scoring 100, 120, 140, so they're going to get more attempts than you. You know, so their numbers are going to be higher than yours. It's going to be inflated because they're moving faster. They're not sitting there pounding the ball in. So it's hard to really gauge, you know. So I say, you know, I can only go off of from 90 up. You know, anybody before the 90s, I don't put them in my top 10.
Okay, so in case you're not sure what I'm so up in arms about, Gilbert Arenas has Larry Bird, the guy they call Larry Legend, who everybody who played against knows was an absolute dog. I mean, you can just do a quick search on Larry Bird or Larry Legend on YouTube and you'll find out about that. He says he believes that Larry Bird is not a top 10 player all time. I don't even know where to start with this. I think it's thoroughly disrespectful. I think it's got to be clickbait. I think it's also from a guy who clearly doesn't respect earlier eras. And I'm not sitting here telling you that I'm a guy who is a 60s and 70s NBA guy, but I have been watching the NBA since the mid to late 80s. So I think I have a fair perspective in terms of historical analysis on the game. 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and now the 2020s. To say that Larry Bird is not a top 10 player all time is just utterly confounding to me. Now, I have him as my number 4 guy all time, which I'm sure a lot of people would say is high and disagree with. But hey, that's my list. I don't care. I have him number 4 all time, right behind Magic at number 3 and Kareem at number 2, and of course Michael Jordan at number 1. But it is just absolutely amazing to me that a guy as deadly in all facets of the game as Larry Bird, you would say he's not top 10. And so I'm not going to run down stats to you, because comparing stats across eras, that's just an asinine endeavor, because the game has changed so completely. What I will say is, when you're playing in a much more physical league, in a league and an era where defense was pushed and physicality was pushed, and you are, let's just face it, you're a 6'9" white guy who completely lacks great athleticism, but just has a vision for the game, could handle the ball, could pass the ball. We know could shoot the ball at a tremendously high level, could rebound the ball at a tremendously high level in an era with true big men, true power forwards and true centers, and not spread floors and not all these extra shots to jack up rebound numbers. You look at a guy like that and then you turn around and say he's not top 10. Well, I don't know what you're thinking about, Gilbert Arenas, but yeah, it's just amazing to me. I mean, if you go back and you take a look at Larry Bird and the things he used to do, this is a guy who averages one less assist per game than LeBron James, who many call the best passing big man or the best passing forward of all time. He averages one less assist per game while having the ball in his hands a whole lot less. He played with a Hall of Fame point guard. Larry Bird had tremendous court vision. He really could see things. He had a tremendous court vision. We look at him, one of the things that always gets me about Larry Bird is his career 9.9, or if you round it up, 10 rebounds per game average. Again, not being athletic and playing on what most people regard as the best front court ever, with another Hall of Famer, power forward, Kevin McHale, who most people regard as a top 10. Some people regard as the top 6. I probably have him in the top 6 power forward of all time. And Robert Parrish, who is another Hall of Famer, and most people could say is a top 20 or top 25 center of all time. So you're playing on the best front court of all time. You're playing in packed paints. There are less shots going up, i.e. less rebounds to get off of less missed shots, and you're averaging 10 a game. You're doing this, Larry Bird, but you got this guy, Gilbert Arenas, coming out and saying that you're not a top 10 player of all time. I truly believe what Gilbert Arenas is doing is coming out here and he's saying these things to get attention, and other people are running it back, such as myself, because it is an interesting topic and it's a topic that actually deserves response and deserves reaction. But what, to me, the problem here is, if you feel that way, that's fine, but you're poisoning the younger viewers who have no idea what the NBA was at that time and who already have no respect for the players of previous generations. Because, as I've said more than once, the NBA and professional basketball seems to be the only sport and the only league that doesn't revere its history and seems almost determined to wipe it out in an effort to elevate today's players. And we know what that is. Because if you want to look at it, a lot of people are going to tell me today's players are better, today's game is better. No, not really. Why do we think, if that's the case, that Adam Silver is having to go through all these different measures to try and boost the popularity of the league and trying to boost the interaction and trying to boost the watching of the league, right? Why is all that happening? We see Adam Silver coming out with new awards, right? Eastern and Western Conference Finals MVP. What is that? What does that matter if you go to the finals and lose? That doesn't mean anything, right? Who cares about that? You look at it now, they're trying to get the in-season tournament set up to try and boost attention and boost ratings. Why is that happening if your game is what you say it is, right? Why have we had to change all the rules to proliferate offense if the players today are better than they were in the past? If they're better than they were in the past, you wouldn't need to change the rules to be able to boost scoring, right? They'd be able to produce that on their own. Why is all this stuff happening if today's players and today's league is supposedly better than it ever has been? That's ridiculous. So you have all these younger viewers and younger fans who are buying into this stuff, right? And then you have guys like Gilbert Arenas, who should know better, who have been around long enough, who first played in the league and have been around long enough to have seen guys like Larry Bird play. But then you're going to open your mouth to say anything before 1990, you're going to totally discount that. That's utterly ridiculous. We look at a guy like a Pistol Pete Maravich, right? If Pistol Pete played today, he would absolutely dominate. Because we see Luka going out here and getting busy, and I'm not saying Luka's not nice. Luka's real nice. But if you see a guy like Pistol Pete, who is one of the original flashy guys in terms of his passing and his ball handling and his shooting. Pistol Pete averaged 44 points a game in college at LSU, right? Some math nerd went out and tracked every shot he took over his 4 years and where he took the shots from, et cetera, et cetera. And there was no three-point line back then, but they came up with the numbers that if when Pistol Pete played in college, averaging 44 a game over 4 years, If they were tracking then, and if there were 3-point shots then, he would have averaged 58 a game for his college career, right? So that tells you Pistol Pete would fit right in today's game. A guy like Larry Bird who could shoot it the way he did, mid-range and long range, if he played today with the green light to shoot it from wherever, the confidence he had, the ability that he had, if he played today where you can't touch guys and the floor is open and he has the court vision that he had and the ability to pass it, if he played today where there are more shots going up, he averaged 10 rebounds back then, what would he average now? Come on, man. This is absolutely ridiculous to say that Larry Bird is not a top 10 player of all time. And the one thing I always go back to, he did all this with such limited athleticism. He did it in a tougher era. He did it lacking many of the physical tools, but he understood the game, he put the work in, and he dominated. That's all there is to it. So to say anybody before 1990, you just discount them, they can't be top 10. Well, that's utterly ridiculous. I totally get it. You're saying things for clicks. You're trying to get attention, but you're being disingenuous and you know better than what you're talking about. So no chill, Gil. You need to chill because what you're saying is utterly ridiculous. All right, those are my thoughts on this topic. If you have any thoughts you want to respond to that, absolutely go ahead. Leave your comments in the comment section. Looking forward to hearing what you got to say. And I'm out. Peace.